the work somehow, the more political work, the constructive work will start now that this operation has finished. I would like to remind for people who have never heard this from me that the observation mission is not like we guarding some sort of a truth and the application of some sort of a truth. The mission are fundamentally an instrument to be independently fed information through our, and it's mainly limited only to the observation of the electoral process. So as well, that means the our recognition now, they are not a request for doing this or doing that on politics. It's just a suggestion that things that could be done. So we give this report with all the data we have that's been elaborated and put forward and put through. So I think this report can also be a good point of observation. And mainly, a good point of interaction on the issue of a simple matter like progressing in a process. What else? But just the EU has now been invited to observe a total of 5 elections in Malawi. This is a very important sign of the friendship between EU and Malawi. And I'm delighted the EU was invited to observe this election September 16. Our work, this is, when we arrived, it's very interesting because for this presentation we sort of went back and say what we done, When we arrived, the situation was pretty iffy. If you remember, there was a certain alarm, the situation was very tense. But then, we were very happy the day of the election. We were prepared for everything, in fact, but it was not necessary. So we say right away at the time that the election were a great proof of maturity of these people who really voted with serenity, but also with passion to vote, waiting for many hours. And I think this was the good point that was at the end confirmed also by the final outcome. That is pretty clear, 68 versus the rest. We also commented this continuously, saying that we think that there's been somehow a turning point at this election. And so we commended everybody we have met. I also added personally, but I'm sure I speak for all of the core team and the analysts and everybody else and all the observers, that at the end, we also appreciated the recognition of peace on the side of the loser. I think in democracy this is an old time habit, which is particularly in situations that are very tense, help a lot to pacify the situation and to clarify it. So on this point, I would like to also quote the head of the author. I spoke to you about 110 people coming and living here for 2 months, but there has been also a particularly dedicated mission organized by the EU, meaning the Parliament, because I'm led by Reynold Lopatka. 7 members of the Parliament came over here and joined us also the week of the election. And I would like to say something that came, because also the 7 parliamentary were very functional in maintaining, an open relationship. So we were not just here policemen somehow. So he said that I'd like him to thank him. That Malawi conducted effective and peaceful election in September, respecting democratic principles despite some iniquity campaigning. The EU Election Observation Mission now publishes its detailed findings on the election, addressing aspects of the electoral process ranging from constituency size to the acceptance of the result. So this is a final result that you will see today. The 21 recommendation, I quote again my colleague Lopatka, the findings are accompanied by 21 recommendations. I do this to give her credit for having been so committed, even though it's not here. I think it deserves to be recognized for the work they have done. For reform in future election, this recommendation focuses on improvement relating to election administration and technology, the campaign environment and campaign finance, media fairness and freedom, the underrepresentation of women as a candidate, and the resolution of electoral dispute, among other matters. So, of all the 21 recommendations, those are probably the hottest point that we have raised. We discussed also with the people we already have met. And of course, probably won't surprise any of you in this room, especially in the media, that the media behavior was one of the points that we focused. Not because the mistake was devastating, but because there was an imbalance that somehow has, up to the last point, been, worrying everybody. And of course, media, freedom media, in an era of, the hybrid war, it's the hottest spot also to discuss in Europe. So, freedom media has, over time, become a real indicator for a democratic process. Through all this, we have here, I'm going to read also our priority recommendation in a summary. Then it would be, you can do this. But before giving this list to Anna, that has been, very functional, very important, because of the actual organization at the end has been run on the ground, and it has required a lot of balance and a lot of, let's say, equilibrium also. I'll just say this, that those recommendations, we have said this to everybody we have met today, are not impositive. In the sense they don't carry a position. It's just a suggestion made in, let's say, reciprocal good faith. We don't intend that we have approved this, that on the ground when we do an observation mission, we don't think of judging the political lines, because we not intend, and we cannot intend, because this is the protocol of EU, to touch the national identity and the national choice, the sovereignty of every country. So I must say one thing, that everybody has received us extremely well. We also met the MEC, no? They had the MEC this morning. They were very happy. Of course, they are happy because fundamentally this is a total new government. But they know also that there is an inheritance to carry on. So I don't think this being pleased is just a way to put out, some good face. I think we have found through all those meetings, a real availability, and everybody we have talked to have expressed the desire to continue to build a constructive relationship with Europe. Anna.
Thank you very much, Chief Observer. As the Chief Observer has already pointed out, the election observation mission spoke to you already about this election. We presented our preliminary findings shortly after Election Day. So what we're offering to you today is more detail. We're offering our findings, the evidence, the data that we've gathered based on, for example, our media monitoring, our social media monitoring. So we're hoping that you're going to find the information in itself valuable and useful as you reflect on the election process that is reaching an end. I mean, it's still continuing in that there are some by-elections to bring it to a close. But still, we're starting already to look ahead, and our report includes something that we consider is a very important sign of our friendship with Malawi. As the Chief Observer said, we come here in a spirit of friendship. We're delighted and we celebrate the fact that we have been invited now to observe 5 elections in Malawi. This is something that we're very proud of and honoured to be here to do this work, but it can't be taken for granted. So what we hope is something that we can give back is these recommendations we have included in our report. They're 21 in number. They address really the entire entire electoral process from voter registration through to tabulation of results and adjudication of any electoral petitions subsequent to the results. So they're very, very broad. But we've tried to make them useful. And they've been informed by things. They've been informed by the stakeholders in Malawi, on one hand, what they think is useful for the future of their electoral processes. And the second thing is by the human rights standards that Malawi as a country has taken on itself, its regional standards, SADC, the African Union, but also then the global standards that's a party to, such as the Convention Against Corruption. So these are all the elements that inform the recommendations. They're not coming from the air, and really it's based on the sovereignty of Malawi. So of the recommendations, 6 of them we thought would be accorded higher priority than the other recommendations, because these 6 recommendations are particularly important for bringing harmony with the regional and international obligations, and also have the potential to make the greatest impact on future electoral processes. So to talk to you quickly about the 6 priority recommendations. The first one to draw your attention to really flows from the findings that we had, which was that there was an effective election, there was a good electoral campaign, there was competition, but there wasn't entirely equity in campaigning for a few reasons. And one of those was around campaign finance, because at present there are no limits in law on fundraising or on expenditure in the context of the campaign period. So this is something we really would urge consideration might be given to, which is enhancing fairness in campaign financing. The second of our priority recommendations addresses the use of electoral technology. Very controversial matter during the electoral process for many reasons. And what we really think that consideration should be given to here is the fact that the processes around election technology were not clear to all stakeholders. And the documentation is in the report, but the recommendation is that clarification in the future would be useful about how election technology should be managed, how it, perhaps even through a legal framework. So the use of electronic tools at all stages of the electoral process, that some standards could be defined for the functionality, for the security, all aspects of information technology in the elections. Our third priority recommendation relates to what the Chief Observer mentioned to you already, which is very much the freedom of the media, which is all about voters' rights. It's about voters having access to information to make a well-informed choice as they go to the polling booth. So we found that there are difficulties in the media landscape, media and social media. We have in broad terms 6 recommendations in this area, but to draw your attention specifically to the 2 priorities, and they relate to MACRA and the MBC, particularly the independence in the composition of their boards, that there might be consideration given to alternative methods of appointment, alternative methods of selection of the membership, particularly drawing on professional groups, peer groups, civil society, and perhaps consideration to giving the legislature an oversight role in the appointment of these bodies also. We thought that this might be very useful for future progress in the information and freedom domain. So that's 2 recommendations, MBC and MACRA, that we're offering. Our 5th priority recommendation is in relation to women. I think it's noted, and it's certainly documented in our report, that sociocultural norms and a lack of access to financial resources put together, they continue to restrict the political participation of women in Malawi. Women comprised only 22% of parliamentary candidates, and 1 amongst the 17 presidential candidates was a woman. Our recommendation in this area is one recommendation which is based on very much advice of civil society, the consideration is that perhaps a temporary special measure would be introduced under the Women's Convention, which Malawi is a state party to, and it is around giving a particular reserved seat to women, one within each district perhaps, a special constituency for women. So something to be considered, but certainly the need for special temporary measures to advance the equal political participation of women. And our final priority recommendation is in the area of electoral dispute resolution. At present in the law, there is no legislative time limit for the adjudication of electoral disputes by the judiciary. Yes, there are some rules of court, but that's not the same as law. And there's a risk that disputes can drag on. We'll say pre-election disputes could drag on so long that then there might not be a candidate in an area, and you might end up, as in a couple of cases, with a by-election having to be held. So the recommendation here is to consider specific rules around electoral dispute resolution being enshrined in law. So that would be the totality of the priority recommendations, but I commend you to consulting the online version and having a look at all of the 21 recommendations. Thank you. And back to yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Observer and Deputy Chief Observer. Do we have anything else to add still on the podium?
Yes, the page back. Another page.
But you sort of the things I will shorten my thing. It's a lot of things that the most necessary thing I could say. So I'm eager to, I'm going to be shorter. You don't need another parade here to the election gone well. This is, of course, it's a joke in the sense that you never said everything. And I'm eager to hear the questions.
Good, yes. So with that, we are ready to take questions from the floor, if there are any. We have microphones available in the room. If there are no questions, we can also continue with interviews afterwards. There is one. Yes, thank you.
Okay, my name is Cindy Karimbuga from The Truth Malawi. Your report highlighted and clear communication on the use of election technology. So I just wanted to know what specific risks did this pose during the 2025 general elections?
Deputy Chief Observer, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. How we look at the election, the electoral process, is about people, the voter being well informed, as well as the candidates being well informed, and so they having a right of access to information as to how the election is going to be conducted. And if you cast your mind back just a few months ago, there was even a demonstration in the streets about the lack of information, or the controversy as to the amount of information that was in the public domain about how the Electoral Commission was going to employ election technology, and there was even a court proceedings on this matter. So simply the risk is about confidence. One needs to have an electorate that has trust and confidence in their electoral system, and so to achieve that they're really entitled to information about all aspects of the process. So it's about openness and transparency, and those are the elements that lead to accountability, and those are all really important elements of the rule of law. So I suppose if you really were to extrapolate it out, if there isn't good information about how an election is going to be run, if it's not clear to the stakeholders, including voters and political parties, then the risk is that it undermines trust in the rule of law, and that's damaging for any democracy. So the she went ahead very well, but the risk is there if you do not have access to information, then you leave space for misinformation, disinformation, speculation, all things that can really damage the credibility and functioning of a democracy. Thanks.
Let me add also something to your answer. Okay, go ahead with your question, point.
My name is Doris Janache, PBW Online TV. My question is going to the Deputy Chief Observer. You also mentioned that women are becoming strict because of financial challenges. Maybe what's your advice to Malawi as a country on that one?
Beg your pardon, did you say what's my advice?
Yes, maybe what's your say on this one? Because women are being restricted, other women maybe they would want to participate in politics, but just because maybe they don't have finances. So what's your say on this one?
Thank you very much. Indeed, just since we arrived in the country a few days ago, I've been reading about the constituency of Nino, for example, and the great achievements of women there, where women elected to Parliament and to the local government there was particularly, it was asserted, due to campaign support that women had received. And certainly the civil society groups involved were really linking support to the women, access to finance, to their success in election. So for any candidate, access to resources is very important because they need money to conduct campaigning, to advertise, whatever it might be. So our recommendations then are offered to many stakeholders for their consideration. So it's about different stakeholders, how are political parties going to consider their obligation to women? Could they ensure that they have minimum numbers of women in their party, nominating women as candidates, and so supporting them financially as well as in other ways? It's also very much about what kind of support civil society enjoys from whoever is working with civil society. So civil society ensuring that it targets as much of its resources, as much of its strength, as much of its advocacy and lobbying as it can towards promoting the participation of women. And if the evidence is saying that financial resources will help improve the situation of women, well, that's a temporary special measure that could be argued for, but it's something for all of those who work with civil society as well as to think about how they can develop programs to support women. But as the Chief Observer already said, we shortly leave the country, so we hope that anyone with an interest in Malawi will undertake work with women, or not even undertake it because they've started, and many I know of the donor community in the room with us here today already work very hard on various programs to advance women, and I don't want to particularly single out some today. So it's to continue that work and to support it as much as they can given the evidence of the results. Thanks.
Thank you. We have another question.
Yes, Wycliffe Njiragoma of Nation Publications. Looking at the 6 priority recommendations, I don't see anything on voter apathy. I don't know if as observer, voter apathy. Yeah, I don't know if as observers you noticed that during the election, and if it's included in the 21 recommendations. What are you saying about it? Do you, for example, have reasons, or do you observe any reasons why not many people turned out to vote? Okay, we can say many Malawians turned out to vote, but compared to the figures that registered, many did not turn up to vote. Did you find any reasons, and what are your recommendations? Secondly, on the state-owned broadcaster, I just want to find out from you, how frustrating is it for you to keep mentioning MBC after each and every elections that it needs to be reformed, but 5 years later, it's still same way that you left it, MBC, the national broadcaster?
Okay, sorry, I didn't completely. No, I did. Just want to make sure that. So you brought the issue. You have brought up two issues. One of disaffection, but since, as I told you, we are not here to judge the political situation or judge the giving a suggestion about what to do politically, etc. We noticed that there was been continuation of disaffection, but we haven't particularly put a suggestion on it, because I think it has largely to do with the fact that despite everything, the election came out very clean. So, and this is what we judge. We judge what we have seen and what is happening. On the issue of fundamentally freedom of the press, I would like to answer to you and also to the previous question on in what sense we recommended this to focus on these issues. Because, we have the proof also in the West, where we can say that, a more sophisticated mechanism, etc., that more and more information, but particularly public service, that means what state manage in the name of citizen, and very often in our country, citizens pay for, those are more and more under pressure of a big crisis, because fundamentally, the trend in all the recent election, the past 10 years, even the major media, even the media, Anglo-Saxon-oriented media, American media, who pride themselves for being, the independents, they have been more and more on one side than another. And this thing has been even more true in public service. What does this is my answer, okay? Can you take this answer? It has nothing to do with, I'm a journalist, that's why you will speak to me. And, because we have to enter also in what the government has become, and that means the politics has become. And please take all this parentheses on the pure technical approach that you came out of this thing, and because it tells the story that, for instance, the story of BBC, that BBC, the president and the director of content had to resign because truly they did make a mistake presenting Trump with some sort of manipulated video in a different way than what Trump was saying in that moment. So I think this thing is central. What does it say to us? That's why we were at the very beginning somehow. But it's better to start early on this issue. So it says that politics has become more and more dependent from news, from information. But also tell us that sometimes, when in politics you accept to substitute yourself with media, well, you can become also exposed to new danger. For instance, manipulation. Manipulation not only from people who can pay more advertising in TV and buys its own passage, but also dangerous in terms of foreign policy influence. If there is a war situation, like in Europe, obviously the hybrid war is the most effective way to attack a democracy. So I think the independence and strength of media, public organization must be independent. We have been asked also, and I'm finished, what we suggest. Well, we have a lot of suggestions. If you want, you could say that. But as a journalist, I'm telling you, a former journalist, I'm telling you one thing. There is only one golden word to define the strength of information and the way you build a strong organization. And this independence. You don't have to look for people who are, related to this or this. You have to look for people who just look at fact, and they want to refer to fact. not to what you think are facts. This is the only way to be strong. So this has been one sort of, it's not, we don't give advice, but we point on the fact that this independence has lacked during the past campaign.
Thank you. To go back to the first point that you raised, Mr. Wycliffe, on behalf of the nation, you asked if we commented on voter apathy, and I was frantically scurrying to see what the figure was. And the turnout of registered voters was 76.4%. So we certainly would not be making any comment on voter apathy. No, we acknowledge that this is quite a substantial participation by the electorate. So just to make that comment, a very high proportion of the registered voters turned out, and that's something that we would see as quite a positive thing. Your other question really was on the implementation of recommendations. As the Chief Observer said earlier, we now have been here on 5 occasions, and this is the 5th set of recommendations that we're pleased to offer to the authorities and the stakeholders in Malawi. First of all, and I think as I said it earlier, we think it's something to celebrate that we are invited as what's effectively a human rights mission into the country to address a very important element of the democracy, how elections are conducted. That in itself is something huge to celebrate. So we offer recommendations each time, and I just checked, we offered 24 recommendations back in 2019, and of those we found that elements of 13 had been implemented. And some of them were really significant. For example, the legal framework was entirely consolidated between 2019 and now. Things like the disenfranchisement of people who were turning 18 in many months in the lead up to the election, that was cured in the law. There are many amendments that did take place between 2019 and the election now in 2025. So it's very much an incremental process. We will send back, the EU will send back a follow-up mission again 2 to 3 years from now, somewhere midway in the electoral cycle, and they will look at the 21 recommendations that we're offering now. We'll celebrate if some of them have been enacted in that period, because really we want to underline that it is a matter of sovereignty. And then we're talking about aspirations to the totally perfect election. And that doesn't exist anywhere on the planet. So we're saying if a state were to implement all of these, that would be really exemplary, but it's not expected. So it's really nudging authorities to go in particular directions, trying to point out flaws, deficiencies. Some are very minor, some are egregious. And we hope that the more important and impactful recommendations will be implemented, but certainly we'll be glad if some are implemented. And yes, some are repeated frequently. They're repeated the same in our jurisdictions too when election observation missions come to us. And we really are happy to have the opportunity to keep talking to the authorities and the people about the essence and the content of those recommendations. So we see it as a positive thing that these dialogues go on. Thanks.
Yes, please.
I'm Lustayo Kanyika from PLFM and Great Dominion Television. My question is on information handling during the electoral processes. There was a time when the country was waiting for the official announcement of the polls, especially the presidential poll. Some political parties, major political parties, held press briefings and they all claimed victory in the polls, even though MEC had not yet announced the official results. You have talked about the conduct of political parties, especially on the issue of funding. You have recommended that they should disclose their sources of income and expenditure. But you have not talked about the political communication that was happening by these major political parties. Don't you think it had the potential to raise tensions and cause chaos in the country? Would it be wrong to assume that the conduct of political parties in terms of information handling should have been one of the top 6 priority recommendations that you have made on these past elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. You're going to find when you have space and time, there's quite an extensive final report ahead of you with a lot of detail about every aspect of the election. And we do indeed address that post-electoral period, that transitional period, particularly waiting while the results were tabulated. And certainly we do in our report acknowledge that there were risks then. Sometimes some things that were cavalier were said, sometimes things were said that could have risked provoking unrest. But really what we said overall was we found that it was a period that was very peaceful. The transition went very well. People accepted the results of the election. We're not advocating in favour or against either party, victor or otherwise. We're really saying it's about the credibility of the results. That's our concern, is the legitimacy of an election. We're really not concerned with who wins, but it's that they win credibly, legitimately, and that's accepted by the people. And really we found on being here through that entire period in large numbers, we found that throughout the country the results were accepted. Yes, there was a period where people were a little bit nervous, maybe looking back at experiences of previous elections, but there wasn't any significant incident to speak of. So we had to consider long and hard what things to formulate recommendations about, but really we tried to focus on things that we thought were the most significant elements of the election that a focus would be important for. Because it's about shining a light in through our recommendation on some aspect of the electoral process that really could do with some scrutiny, some reconsideration. So those were the things that we thought, and guided by the people we spoke to, our interlocutors, the electoral stakeholders, the voters. That's how we distilled down our entire findings into these 21 and particular 6 recommendations. And I hope it's difficult to talk to you about the recommendations when you haven't yet had a chance to view the tome that they're based on. So I hope you will. Thanks for your interest.
Thank you. It seems we don't have questions anymore in the room. The mission will continue its meetings with electoral stakeholders this week, and we also hold a roundtable to continue these conversations with key stakeholders. Thank you for the press conference. We'll close it for now, and if there are any requests, we can attend to them afterwards. Thank you.